I had been looking forward to the family reunion for weeks. Ever since the invitation came up in passing during a phone call with my mom, I'd marked the date on my calendar, cleared my schedule, and even picked out the perfect outfit. It wasn't just another dinner, it was a rare chance to reconnect. I imagined the laughter, the stories, the warmth of familiar faces. So when I showed up to our annual holiday gathering and casually said, "I can't wait for the reunion tomorrow," I expected smiles or nods of agreement. But instead, my brother chuckled. "What reunion?" he said, glancing around the table. "That was yesterday." The air felt like it had been sucked out of the room. At first, I thought he was joking, just being his usual sarcastic self. But then my sister looked down at her plate, my mom cleared her throat awkwardly, and my aunt, with an almost guilty look, pulled out her phone. "Here," she said, flipping through photos. "It was a great time." She turned the screen toward me and I stared at image after image of my entire extended family, laughing, smiling, arms around each other. Everyone was there, everyone except me. I tried to swallow the lump rising in my throat. "But Mom told me it was on the 23rd, I said quietly. My mom barely glanced at me. "Oh?" Must have been a miscommunication. You know how these things go. No apology, no real acknowledgement. Just a casual brush-off, like forgetting to include your own daughter, your own sister. In a family event was no more significant than burning a casserole. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply stood up, quietly took my coat from the hallway, and walked out into the December air. The cold hit me hard, but it was nothing compared to the frost I had just felt inside that dining room. As I walked to my car, the silence rang louder than any shouting ever could. They hadn't forgotten. They had chosen not to tell me. And the cruelest part? They hadn't even bothered to hide it. Driving home, the emotions came in waves: confusion, sadness, anger, but most of all, clarity. This wasn't about one reunion. It was about years of being treated like the outsider, the one who didn't quite fit in, the one whose achievements made others uncomfortable, the one they called only when they needed something. That night, I didn't answer their messages. I didn't respond to the half-hearted, "oops, sorry" texts. Instead, I made a different kind of decision. Quiet, firm, and final. Sometimes the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all.
When I got home that night, I sat in silence for a long time. The lights were off. The house was still. The only sound was the soft hum of the heater and the occasional ping of my phone lighting up with new messages. I didn't check them. I already knew what they'd say, something between forced concern and guilt-laced excuses. But I didn't want to hear it. Not now. Maybe not ever. Instead, I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat at the table, staring into the dark. The absurdity of it all washed over me. They had a whole reunion. They decorated, cooked, took pictures. Someone made a playlist, for God's sake. And not one of them thought, "Hey, we should tell Rachel." No one sent a last-minute reminder. No one even noticed I wasn't there, until I brought it up. And what cut the deepest wasn't just being forgotten. It was realizing that being excluded didn't surprise me. It felt familiar, like I'd seen this version of my family before, just in smaller doses. Quiet jabs, subtle silences, polite smiles masking coldness underneath. I had spent years telling myself it was unintentional, that I was imagining it, that maybe if I just kept being helpful, being generous, they'd start seeing me as one of them, as family. But that night shattered all those illusions. Around 11 p.m., I finally opened my phone. 27 messages. 6 from Lisa, 5 from Mark. The rest were from my mom and a couple from my dad. Most were variations of the same theme. "Where did you go? Don't be dramatic. We didn't mean to leave you out. It was just a mix-up." And the most insulting one of all, from Lisa. "You're making this all about you. It's the holidays." I nearly laughed out loud. Then I opened the family group chat. The last message in there was from Mark, sent earlier that day. A picture of the reunion, captioned, "The whole gang." The whole gang. I stared at the screen for a long time before finally typing something. Not a rant, not an accusation, just one sentence. "Thanks for the reminder. I guess I'm not part of the whole gang after all." I hit send and closed the app. The response was immediate. "Lisa, come on, Rachel. Don't do this." Mark, Wow, way to be sensitive. My mom. Honey, don't let one misunderstanding ruin Christmas. But it wasn't one misunderstanding. It was the last of many. I set my phone down, took another sip of wine, and whispered to no one, I'm done. Because something had changed in me that night. A quiet strength had settled where the hurt used to be. I wasn't going to beg for their love anymore. I wasn't going to keep proving myself to people who only saw me as a backup plan. They made their choice. And now, so had I. The next morning, I woke up to a flurry of messages. My phone buzzed every few minutes. Texts, missed calls, voicemails. Most of them came from my mother, a few from Lisa, and even a couple from my dad, who rarely ever reached out unless it was about money or car trouble. But what struck me most was how none of them said, we're sorry. Not one message acknowledged the reunion or admitted fault. Instead, they danced around it, trying to reframe the narrative. Don't take things so personally. It was a hectic week, we all forgot. You know how scatterbrained mom can be. But I wasn't interested in excuses anymore. I was done giving people a pass for repeatedly stepping on me. So that morning, I took a deep breath, opened my laptop, and drafted a message. Short, direct, and clear. Hi all. Going forward, I won't be sending financial support anymore. I've done it for years without complaint, and I don't regret helping when it was needed. But recent events have made it clear that while my money is welcome, I'm not. I'm tired of being treated like a wallet instead of a person. Please don't contact me about money again. Rachel. I reread the message twice, then I hit send into the family group chat. What followed was chaos. Mark responded first. Are you serious right now? Over one dinner? Then Lisa chimed in. Wow, petty much? My mother, of course, tried to be the voice of reason. Sweetheart, let's talk about this. Don't do anything rash. My father sent just one line. You're disappointing us. It stung, but not in the way it used to. Not like when I was younger, when I would have cried for days trying to figure out how to make them proud. This time, their disappointment felt like a release. They had made it clear over the years that they valued what I gave, not who I was. I'd paid Lisa's rent more times than I could count. I'd covered mom and dad's unexpected medical bills when they didn't want to dip into their own retirement. I even once bailed Mark out of credit card debt, only to later find out he'd used the card to buy concert tickets and a gaming console. And all that time, I kept telling myself, they're family, as if that justified the way they treated me. But family isn't about what you can extract from someone. It's about showing up, caring, including each other in the things that matter. Not just the emergencies, not just the bills. As I sat there sipping my coffee and watching the angry texts roll in, I felt strangely calm. Like I had finally redrawn the boundaries I should have set years ago. Mark even tried calling. I let it go to voicemail. Then came a final text. Don't expect us to forgive you when you come crawling back. I smiled. Not out of cruelty, but out of clarity. I wasn't going to crawl back because I was finally standing up straight. For the first time, I was living on my own terms. Later that evening, just as the sun was setting and the sky had turned a deep shade of orange, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and a pit settled in my stomach as I stood up from the couch. I already had a feeling who it was. Sure enough, when I looked through the peephole, there he was, Mark, standing on my doorstep, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His hair was messy, his coat half-zipped, and in his hands, he held a crumpled envelope. His face was a mixture of anger, desperation, and something else, something close to panic. I opened the door just slightly. What are you doing here? He scoffed. Seriously, Rachel? We need to talk. I didn't move. About what? You said everything you needed to in the group chat. Mark took a step closer, and I instinctively placed my hand on the edge of the door, ready to close it. Come on, he said, voice low. You're not really going to cut us off like that. Over a party? This isn't about the party, I snapped. This is about years of being treated like a second-class member of this family, of being used, ignored, and laughed at, until someone needs money. His jaw clenched. You don't understand what this is doing to us. I have a $3,000 credit card payment coming up. I thought the money would be there. You always send it at the start of the month. There it was. The entitlement. As if I was his paycheck. As if he was owed my success. Maybe you should have thought about that before buying a PS5, a laptop, and a new TV all in one weekend, I said coldly. Don't tell me it's my fault you can't budget. He looked like he wanted to yell, but he didn't. Instead, he laughed bitterly. You think this makes you powerful, don't you? Finally cutting the strings, showing us who's in charge? I didn't reply. He stepped back, eyes narrowing. You'll regret this. One day you'll need something, and we won't be there. I raised an eyebrow. You've never been there, Mark. Silence. For a moment, his shoulders sagged. Then he reached into the crumpled envelope and pulled out a stack of overdue bills. Mom and Dad are behind on everything. Lisa's months behind on rent. We thought you'd understand. You've always understood. No, I said. I've always tolerated it. There's a difference. Mark's eyes flashed. So that's it? You're turning your back on your family? I looked at him. Really looked at him. No, Mark. My family turned their backs on me a long time ago. I'm just finally walking away. I closed the door slowly, gently but firmly. His footsteps lingered outside for a while, pacing. Then I heard them retreat. I leaned back against the door, heart pounding, not from fear, but from freedom. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one trying to keep the peace. I was the one setting it. The next morning, I woke up to a dozen notifications lighting up my phone. Missed calls from Mom, texts from Lisa, and of course, a string of new messages from Mark. I didn't open any of them right away. I wanted to enjoy my coffee in peace, something I hadn't truly had in years, but curiosity eventually won. I scrolled through the latest round of guilt-laced pleas. Lisa, Rachel, come on. You've made your point. Don't punish everyone for one mistake. Mom, we're still your family. You can't turn your back on blood. Mark, I don't know what your problem is, but this is seriously messed up. We needed you. I stared at the screen for a long time. It was fascinating, really, how quickly their tone had changed, from mocking me at the reunion they never invited me to practically begging me for help. But even in their apologies, they couldn't quite bring themselves to say what mattered. There was no, I'm sorry we excluded you. No, we shouldn't have treated you that way. Just demands and manipulations wrapped in sugar-coated concern. Then came a longer message from my mom that stopped me in my tracks. Mom, I know we haven't always been fair to you. I know you feel like we've used you. Maybe we have. But we're struggling. We need help. Lisa's apartment is being foreclosed. Your dad's medication isn't covered anymore. And Mark, well, you know how he is. He's still your brother. Can't we just move forward and forget all this?
For a moment, I felt that familiar tug in my chest, the part of me that always wanted to be the one who fixed things. The peacekeeper, the helper, the daughter who never said no. But then I remembered the way they laughed at me around the dinner table. The smirk on Mark's face when he said he already used the money I'd sent for shoes. The way Mom just shrugged off forgetting to invite me to the reunion like I didn't matter. So I replied, me. You don't get to treat someone like they're disposable and then ask them to clean up your mess. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. I expected another wave of pushback, but instead there was silence. Hours passed. Nothing. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. Later that evening, just before bed, my phone buzzed one last time. It was Lisa. Lisa, I know you're serious, and honestly, I get it. You've always been the one holding everyone together. I wish I had stood up for you sooner, but if there's ever a day you feel ready to talk, I'll be here. It was the first real message I'd received. No guilt, no manipulation, just honesty. I didn't reply. Not yet. I wasn't ready. But something in me softened, just a little. Because finally, someone in my family had spoken to me like I mattered. Not as a paycheck, not as a punching bag, but as a person. For the first time in years, the silence in my home felt like a blessing, not a void. I didn't wake up to guilt-laced texts or demands disguised as affection. I didn't flinch when my phone buzzed, expecting someone from my family to ask for money. I simply stretched, brewed a cup of coffee, and sat by the window as sunlight crept across the floorboards. It was peaceful, and more than that, it was mine. No more pretending, no more walking on eggshells, no more handing over pieces of myself just to feel worthy of a seat at their table. I had reclaimed something I didn't even realize I had lost, my own space, my own voice, and the right to protect both. The first few days were quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes with tension, but the kind that lets you breathe. I dove back into work, booked a weekend getaway just because I could, and spent my evenings cooking actual meals instead of grabbing something quick between work and phone calls to sort out Mark's financial disasters or Mom's latest emergency. It's funny how much room you have in your life when you stop giving it to people who only take. Of course, the messages still came, sporadically. Lisa sent a few more heartfelt ones, less demanding, more reflective. Mark? Well, he eventually went silent, probably when he realized I really wasn't bluffing. Mom left a voicemail about a week later trying to sound casual. Just checking in, hope you're doing okay. But even that felt like a fishing line, cast in hopes I'd bite. I didn't, not because I hated them, not because I wanted revenge, but because I finally understood that forgiveness doesn't always mean re-entry. You can let go of the anger without inviting the chaos back in. And that's what I did. I let go. I forgave myself first. For all the years I bent over backward thinking maybe if I just did more, gave more, they'd finally see me. And then I forgave them, not out loud, not in some dramatic family confrontation, but quietly in the privacy of my own heart. I forgave them for being exactly who they were, and for never being who I needed them to be. I realized I had spent so much of my life trying to earn love from people who had no idea how to give it freely. And now I gave that love to myself. I lit a candle, turned on my favorite music, and danced in my kitchen with no one watching. No guilt, no expectations, just me. And for the first time, that was more than enough. Weeks had passed since I closed that door, and with it, a chapter of my life I never realized I had the power to end. At first, I thought the silence might feel like loneliness, that the absence of my family's constant drama might leave a void. But what I discovered was something else entirely. Peace. A deep, grounding, almost sacred peace that settled into my bones like warmth after a long winter. I stopped checking my phone for missed calls or guilt-ridden messages. I stopped looking over my shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Instead, I focused on building a life that didn't revolve around anyone else's chaos. I poured my energy into the things that filled me: morning runs, late-night books, quiet dinners with friends who never made me feel small. For the first time, my life wasn't a response to someone else's crisis. It was mine, intentional, free, and it showed. My business took off in ways I never imagined. I launched a mentorship program for young women in finance, something I had always wanted to do, but never had the time or emotional bandwidth to focus on. I began investing not just in stocks, but in people. People who valued me, who saw me, who didn't demand a piece of me in exchange for approval. I realized how much of my past had been spent surviving, bracing for the next insult, working overtime to prove I was worthy of love that should have been unconditional. But now, I wasn't surviving anymore. I was thriving. Every once in a while, the past would try to pull me back. A voicemail from my mother, a new number that I instinctively knew was Mark, but I no longer felt the urge to answer. Not because I was angry, but because I finally understood that some relationships don't need closure. They need distance, and with that distance came clarity. I used to think family was everything. That blood meant obligation, that no matter how I was treated, I owed them something just for being born into their world. But now I know better. Family isn't who shares your name. It's who shows up with honesty, with care, with consistency. And sometimes, the greatest act of self-love is choosing to walk away from those who never really chose you. I still think about them sometimes. Wonder if they've changed, if they regret what they did. But those thoughts no longer consume me. They pass like clouds, noticed, then gone. The future feels wide open now. Unwritten in the best way. I'm not sure what's next. Maybe a new city, maybe love, maybe just more quiet mornings and the sound of my own voice finally being enough. Whatever it is, I know this much. It will be on my terms, and that alone makes everything I've walked through worth it. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do for ourselves is to walk away from the people who make us feel like we're never enough, even when those people are family. Rachel's story isn't just a tale of betrayal or petty family drama. It's a deeply human experience that many people, especially those who've worked hard to escape difficult beginnings, can relate to. She gave and gave, hoping that her sacrifices, her success, and her silent loyalty would eventually earn her a place of love and respect in her own family. But what she got in return was resentment, manipulation, and emotional distance. It's a harsh truth, but one that we need to acknowledge. Not every relationship is worth saving, and sometimes the most toxic relationships are the ones we're born into. What makes Rachel's journey so powerful isn't just that she cut ties, it's how she reclaimed her sense of worth. She realized that she didn't need to keep paying for approval that was never coming. She stopped confusing obligation with love, and in doing so, she created space for peace, self-respect, and authentic connection. This is a lesson we can all apply. If you've ever been the one holding a family together while quietly crumbling inside. If you've ever bent over backward to be enough for people who never really saw you. If you've ever felt guilty for wanting boundaries, then Rachel's story is a reminder that you're allowed to choose yourself. You are not selfish for protecting your peace. You are not cruel for setting boundaries. You are not wrong for wanting relationships that are built on mutual care and respect. Success doesn't owe anyone an apology. And love, the real kind, doesn't come with a price tag or a guilt trip. So wherever you are in your journey, whether you're on the verge of making a hard decision or just starting to realize that something in your life needs to change, know that you're not alone. Choosing yourself is never easy, but it's always worth it. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe to Reddit Family Files for more real-life stories that inspire, heal, and remind us that sometimes the most important family is the one we build for ourselves.